down.
If that's the case,
they have the draft capital. And again, when you're talking about the rookie quarterback starting, point I want to make, if you're not a first-round draft pick, how many times have we seen a mid-round pick come on in his rookie year of camp and win a starting job? The times I remember, Russell Wilson as a third-round pick when he shined in the summer and clearly outplayed Matt Flynn and Charlie Whitehurst and Dak Prescott. Those are the two that I remember. Both guys lit it up in the summer. Now, we may see Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, despite the lack of reps. We may see one of them come out and light it up. But in my mind, that's what it takes when you're a middle-round pick to win a starting job. You have to
you gotta leave no doubt.
Really outplay the competition.
All right, so obviously we're going to keep talking about this Browns quarterback situation. It's crazy. They had a really good running back draft. Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson. I like those two picks. They still got Miles. Are with their coaching staff. John Morton takes over for Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator. Kelvin Shepard takes over for Aaron Glenn as defensive coordinator. And with how good their offense was, defense was a focus this offseason. Adding cornerbacks DJ Reed, Avonte Maddox, as well as defensive tackle Roy Lewis. For their first-round pick, they took D tackle Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. So we're going to go to live footage of their practice in just a little bit. We'll see them right now on the field. Dan, what are you thinking about the coordinator change and how much that really will make a difference on offense? Let's start there, and then we'll move to the defensive side.
It'll make a big difference. I think Detroit is one of those prime cases that they will be a very different, I think, better football team in November and December than the first part of what we see in September. This new offensive coordinator's got to figure out who this team is, and this team has to figure out who this offensive coordinator is. A lot of times we talk about play calling, and we only focus it on that individual play caller. But it's so much more connected than that. And so Johnny Morton comes over, and he's got to figure out, like, who's this offensive line without Frank Ragnow? You know, Tate Ratledge, he's not going to be who he is in September, who he'll be in November. You know what I'm saying? He's going to get better if that's going to be the guy. So he's got to figure out who this offense is as this season goes on. Ben Johnson knew exactly where they were because it was a couple years in. So I just think that the expectations for this football team should still be ridiculously high, but for their fans, give them till, not November-ish to really figure out how Super Bowl contender you actually are.
Tate Ratledge, a lot of experience at Georgia, but now filling that void at center. How do you expect him to play there?
Yeah, he's a college guard, so he's got experience playing near the center spot, but hasn't played it much, at least not recently. I thought this player was terrific during his 4 years at Georgia. This was a guy who actually had that tightrope surgery on his ankle in the middle of the year last year and came back, and I thought somehow looked better during the concluding weeks of Georgia's season. Super experienced, great athlete. I'm not concerned about the eventual transition to the NFL, but you're putting a lot on the plate because you're not replacing some average center. You're replacing Frank Ragnow, who is arguably, not just one of the best, but probably the toughest player on this team. There's some legendary stories about what he brought to the table for the interior of the offensive line. Perhaps one of the biggest retentions for this team this offseason was Hank Fraley, their offensive line coach.
Sure.
Played a long time in this league, had a lot of suitors. I think Ben Johnson would have loved to have had him in Chicago. He interviewed for the Seahawks offensive coordinator spot. So at least a little bit of continuity along the position group side for a team that is going to see at least 40% of his offensive line look different this year.
Yeah, look, Tate's film is really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. He's a really good football player. And look, obviously, John Morton has to figure out exactly how to make sure that it all seamlessly fits together. This offensive line had a little bit of a step back a year ago as far as its blocking efficiency. But look, they need to really reestablish their dominance up front here as far as being able to capture the line of scrimmage and really pound people and bludgeon people. Because look, if you're an all-new offensive coordinator, that's probably one of the number one things that you want to make sure that you can do is make sure you can capture the line of scrimmage. Everything builds off of that. What was interesting is, like, I heard some stuff about how they want to use Jahmyr Gibbs this year. Now, Jahmyr has talked about the fact that I will be deployed a little bit differently. A lot more usage as a wide receiver, a lot more variance in terms of where they line me up, which I think is fantastic. Because the dude is just ridiculous. Keep an eye out for this name, too, speaking of the draft. Isaac Teslaw, the wide receiver from Arkansas, who they picked up, who is just a big, tall, fast son of a gun that they're going to be able to put in the middle. Him and Jameson Williams now, I mean, come on now. Yeah. When you think about that kind of combination along with Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're loaded up. The concern I still have for Detroit, though, can they rush the passer? Well, can they still rush the passer? Because, look, okay, Tyleik Williams is a good player. he's a hell of an athlete, a big body, he's athletic as hell. Well, you were in the bottom third in the league in pass rush win rate last year. And Tyreek really jumped that up for him now.
That
Look,
helps.
it does, but it's one dude, right? Tyreek has to be a force in the middle. There's a few questions, but look, that dude right there on your screen,
Man.
if there's someone who will figure it out, he'll figure it out.
You bring that pass rush up front. They're still waiting for Aleem McNeil to get back. Not fully back yet. You mentioned Ben Johnson. No Aaron Glenn on the defense side of football. Not only no Ben Johnson, no Aaron Glenn. They lost 8 coaches in all. And you mentioned they keep Hank Fraley, big keep for that organization, but that's a lot of change.
Sure is.
That any team has to overcome when you lose a Pro Bowl caliber center in Frank Ragnow, when you lose 8 assistant coaches, including both coordinators. I just think that's a lot. And they're so good that they're capable of overcoming it because that's how much leadership they have, that's how much talent they have, and they've done a great job at identifying and drafting talent in recent years.
The long game, I just think is really important for this team this year. They've done such a good job, long game, as an organization in the rebuild. But we've talked about the offense in Ragnow. It's also in the names that were mentioned. Hutchinson's got to get healthy. Aleem McNeil has to get healthy. They'll be much healthier in November and December than they will be in September. This also has the chance to be one of the best secondaries in football with the addition of DJ Reed. Brian Branch is fantastic. So I just think the expectations will be for them to hit the ground running and come out like gangbusters in September. I don't think they're going to be the football team that they will eventually when it comes to the matchup. I just think that they're one of those teams that is going to be much, much better in November and December than they are in September.
One of the things we heard yesterday from Jeremy Fowler, he was there, is that Jamison Williams is going to have an even bigger role in this offense and not just be a guy that's a speedster.
They got to figure that out, though.
Right.
They got to figure that out.
Jared Goff may have a little bit more ownership on this offense for the first time in his career. It was more Ben Johnson's offense before. We'll see the Bears camp in a little bit, by the way. We'll check in on Ben Johnson now as the head coach there. But here's more of our schedule, what we're looking right. Here's the schedule. We've already checked in with a lot of these camps. We're switching to the right side of the screen because it's getting later in the day, of course. In the 10 a.m. hour, Panthers, Texans, Eagles. You'll see the Patriots. And then a little break before we see some of those teams on the far right side. The Steelers going to be fascinating. Aaron Rodgers trotting out there on the field. We're going live to all of these camps. So everything you're seeing is like a front row seat there at the camps. You got Field Yates, you got Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick, Adam Schefter with you. Throughout, we've got a lot to get to, you guys. Let's start with our storylines that we're most interested in. Dan, kick us off here as we cross 10 a.m.
The Patriots' first 3 picks, I'm obsessed with them. Will Campbell in the first round, the protection for Drake May on the backside, then Travion Henderson in the second round at running back, and then Kyle Williams. I think Kyle Williams has the chance to be as impactful a rookie receiver that we have in the NFL this year. And if those 3 rookies can be big-time players for the Patriots, there's a chance this organization and team are going to make noise a lot sooner than people expect.
Yeah, look, for me, it's all about Terry McLaurin. It's all about this situation, this contract situation in the field. Now we were discussing it, where exactly do you try and get him to on an average per year basis? And look, if I'm Terry McLaurin right now, I'm looking at a guy like Brandon Ayuk, and I'm going, hold on, Brandon Ayuk is right around $30 million per year. He goes, I know I'm as important to my football team as he is to his. I'm damn near a lot more important. So I think that's kind of where you got to kind of get this guy too in order to get him in the camp, because every day that he misses right now, all you're doing is increasing the chances that Jayden has some kind of setback. You've got to have this guy in there. I know we're only in July. Get him in the camp.
Yeah, Jayden had the best rookie season for any quarterback in NFL history last year. Bo Nix was also tremendous, but the other 4 members of that 6 first-round pick quarterback class in 2024, I've got my eyes on this year. What kind of leap do we expect from Caleb Williams and Drake May and J.J. McCarthy? I guess not much of a leap, but a debut from J.J. McCarthy. And also Michael Penix Jr., who started just 3 games for Atlanta last season. Very optimistic about each of these 4 players, especially the 2 at the top, Caleb Williams and Drake May, who have all the talent to be franchise changers.
All right, the Cincinnati Bengals got a deal done last night for the lone, unremaining, unsigned first-round draft pick from 2025, Shamor Stewart. Now, Trey Hendrickson is the lone holdout in Cincinnati. Bengals waiting to see whether they can get a deal done. The disagreement is over guaranteed money. All the other parameters are basically in place, but they cannot agree on how much guaranteed money Trey Hendrickson will make. The Bengals are willing to offer 1 year of guarantees. The other top pass rushers like T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby have gotten 3 years of guaranteed money, and there is the disconnect and the reason as to why Trey Hendrickson is in Florida as the Bengals are in Cincinnati getting ready for the upcoming season.
As you guys said off the top of the show, Trey Hendrickson totally fine with sitting out if it needs to come to that. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's go to Flowery Branch, Georgia, where we're live looking at Falcons training camp. This is what's going on that field right now. A reminder, some key draft picks to fortify the defense. Jalen Walker, the linebacker, as well as the linebacker James Pierce Jr., the safety Xavier Watts. They picked up some nice pieces on that side of the ball. Before we get into the offense, because we'll spend a lot of time on that, we'll see Michael Penix Jr. run the field here, what do you expect from the defensive side and some of those improvements they tried to make in the draft?
Yeah, they had the second fewest sacks in the NFL last year, did the Falcons. Only the Patriots had fewer. So they don't just need those two players to compete. They need to compete meaningfully this year because, of course, their first-round pick now belongs to the Los Angeles Rams next year. If the goal of the game was to simply pin your ears back and rush with speed and athleticism, James Pierce would have been the second best rusher in the class besides Abdul Carter. For him, it's about finding out other ways to win besides just using his ability to torque and win with that speed. Jalen Walker was the most versatile defensive player in the class this past year, maybe once again, other than Abdul Carter. These guys got to play a significant role right away. And I would not totally dismiss the name Braylon Trice, their third-round pick a year ago. He led the FBS in pressures during his final season at Washington, wasn't a premier athlete, so he slid to the third round. He tore his ACL last year in training camp, missed his entire rookie season. They need those three guys to completely reshape the complexion of this pass rush, along with Leonard Floyd, who, of course, they got after he was released by San Francisco.
Yeah, that's a big one. Leonard is going to play a big role in terms of trying to bring along these young guys. Look, let me just piggyback a little bit on James Pierce. Got a chance to go down to Knoxville last year and watch him play against U of F. And look, James Pierce, when you look at him in person, and you look at that number 27 when he was playing in Tennessee, he reminded me of Javon Curtis. That's the kind of athleticism you're talking about. You're talking about a sub 4.5 40 guy at like 6'5", 245, 250. He's got all the talent in the world. There is no reason for them to be bottom quarter in the league in pass rush win rate like they have been for infinity years, it seems like. They've been trying to answer this question in Atlanta forever. And him and Jalen Walker and Leonard Floyd, that has got to be it. That has got to be now where they can kick it into gear. Because if they don't, I mean, you can't throw any more assets at it than they have. And those guys are absolutely right. They have to come through, and Raheem has to make sure it comes through.
Yeah, you heard the reporting earlier from Dan Graziano about their new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, saying the offensive scheme was so complicated that he was struggling to coach against that. And what's important for Michael Penix Jr. to take that next step? We saw only a small sample size last year, Dan.
Well, the unit that we just were watching for about 90 seconds is going to go a long way. It's going to be one of the best offensive lines in football. It's one of the most connected offensive lines in football. So anytime a quarterback, let alone a young guy, has that advantage. Last year when he played, the thing that stood out was the arm downfield, the rocket launcher ability downfield, okay? So your yards per attempt, this is just in his 3 starts. Right. He's number 1 in the league.
Wow.
Yards per game, he was top 10. And then you go to completion percentage, 29th. So they're going to, Zach Robinson, their offensive coordinator, they're going to have to try to find the nice marriage. You love the explosive plays and you love the big plays down the field, but you're also not going to be good enough completing 58% of your passes. Your offense, because there has to be an efficiency part of it. So you love the fact that you can have those big plays down the field, and Mooney and Drake London are making them. But I do think that will be the one thing to pay attention to with Michael Penix is, can he just learn a little bit more of the completion-centric ball efficiency demand this league has?
If you're watching with an eagle eye, you're noticing that Kirk Cousins is, of course, still out there. Adam,
it felt awkward looking at it.
I agree.
I was like, when he went with his rep, I'm like, who is that? Like, who's going after Penix?
Kirk. We all kind of had the same thought. And I think for fans, I mean, I'm curious about this too, Adam. It's quiet right now, but is there potentially an appetite, if Atlanta could get enough money, maybe there's a team that needs a quarterback, somebody, God forbid, gets injured. Do you see him being moved?
Well, that's the whole thing. There's nobody right now that you could say needs a quarterback. There's nobody that needs a quarterback and would be willing to pay the money today. But the moment Justin Fields goes down, your mind wanders to Atlanta. Are the Jets going to check in on Kirk Cousins? Fortunately, it was not a serious injury. There's no need for the Jets to do that. But that's what's going to happen. If there's a quarterback that unfortunately gets hurt at all this summer, everybody's first thought would be, will they call Atlanta for Kirk Cousins right now?
The quarterback room's so deep there, Dan. What do you think? I mean, you're watching Cousins right now. The problem last year was it felt like he was a shell of himself. But is there still enough in the tank where he could contribute well to another team?
I do. I just don't think if I'm Atlanta, I move off of him.
Interesting.
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah.
When they made the decision to draft Michael Penix, they were comfortable with the situation for at least 2 years.
Yep,
Whatever the order was, they were comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You just talked about Field, how they took next year's #1 pick to go up. They know. They know that this year's a really important